she's a doctor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dovec, and she's a dietitian.
Hey, I'm Hannah Schuyler, and together we are the Doctor Dietitian Collab.
Well, welcome back, everyone. We are on week 2 of a series that we are calling SOS. Last week, we talked about stress, and today we are talking about overwhelming anxiety. And that final S is solitude. So we are calling this a collection of conversations to help you navigate that MINDfields of things that pop up in your life and how to deal with them from a mental health standpoint and keeping yourself feeling sane and being able to function pretty much.
Less stress, less anxiety, all of that good stuff is what we want to help to get you so that you can be like really successful and really thinking through, like looking at this from a bigger perspective of why does this matter?
Absolutely. And some of you out there might be thinking, why are the doctor and dietitian going there? Like, why even go there and go on this topic of mental health? But I think the overwhelming majority of you are going to say, what took you two so long? Like, yeah. I'm really excited about this series, just to hear your perspective and see how it relates to yourself and what you're going through.
Yeah, when we look at weight loss and bariatric surgery and all of that stuff, there is so much of this plays a role in it.
Undoubtedly. And it's not just this bariatric community that is suffering with this. There are, just to look at the stats, over 40% of all adults suffer with mental distress.
Wow.
And almost 60% of young adults do. And over 50% of parents are severely concerned about their kids. So what I'm saying here is we either are that, or we know that, or love that. And how do we just deal with it? And we're going to really flip the conversation from one of, almost drowning out your anxiety or, coping with it with alcohol or food or things like that, but to really feel the feelings and why that's important. And we're going to flip the script and we're going to talk about how an anxious me empowered we, and how anxiety is not a bad thing, a bad thing at all. Just like we talked about stress being a natural human response, we're going to talk about overwhelming. Well, hopefully it's not overwhelming. We're going to talk about anxiety being needed and how just to make it so it's not overwhelming is what we want to do here. And so, I want to start off and say, again, just reiterate how amazing we all are at faking being fine.
Yes.
And we know that we're all liars.
We are.
Yeah. We are not fine, my friends.
We don't all live like this curated life.
No.
It's not real.
No, it's not real. It is not real at all. We fail, we mess up, we all do. And it does not mean, though, by failing or messing up or things not going the way you thought they were, it doesn't mean that you're a failure,
right,
or you're a mess, or that you don't deserve to be here. And there, there's big differences in what we're talking about, mm-hmm. and we're not here prescribing meds or anything like that. Of course,
diagnosing, and I think that's an important distinction to make is. There is feeling anxious about situations and situational anxiety, and then there is the diagnosable anxiety disorder.
Yes.
And so, if you are somebody that struggles with this and you're like, this is more than situational, or, this is where you would want to go and seek out professional help. And even if you're not sure, it never hurts. I think most people can benefit from seeking out mental health professionals. But if you are, you're like, this is really resonating with me, maybe more than I want it to.
Yeah.
Definitely seek that out because they can do those things. They can prescribe if you need medication or cognitive behavior therapy or any kind of, treatment that might be advisable for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And we're going to start off this episode and kind of define what anxiety can mean. I have a lot of different definitions here, and I want to kind of like dissect all of these and really make it applicable to our lives. So this one really struck me as the most powerful definition of anxiety, and that is the worst possible scenario is the most probable outcome. Gosh, don't we always do that?
We always do that. Yeah, we talked in our last episode about that, like having that conversation in your head of going to approach the coworker, going to approach your partner, going to approach somebody and thinking like they are just going to take this in the worst and it's going to be a fight. And then It usually isn't.
No. And then you have this like come down of like euphoria of like, oh,
Yeah.
that was great. And they love me, actually.
Yeah.
They don't hate me at all. It's quite
I'm not
the
getting
contrary.
fired. I'm getting a raise, you know?
Oh, that's why they sent me that email that they wanted to speak to me.
Yeah.
Oh, they were just really happy with my work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so like there's those moments where like you're thinking that you are going to get the axe, you're going to have, you know, it's bad news. The doctor's office calls like, oh goodness. No, they just needed to reschedule your appointment.
Yeah.
They didn't need to tell you that you have some horrible thing going on.
Right. Or, you know, one of the big ones is obviously going in for surgery.
Yes.
I mean, the anxiety that something is going to go wrong on that operating table when we look at the statistics and that overwhelmingly is not the case.
Exactly.
Overwhelmingly, things go great.
That's so true. And we've had conversations and episodes on acute complications, chronic constipation, complications. Constipation can be one of them. Yeah. And we have acknowledged those things. Yes, we know that these aren't without risk, but I can feel the anxiety of patients when they're sitting in that preoperative area. That walking in, I always say that like when you're driving to the hospital or your partner, your loved one, whoever is driving you in, and you're just kind of looking out the window and it's like, am I like driving to like, is this it? Like, is this the last drive I'll ever take? Like you're looking at the trees and at the environment in a different light because you're just so like anxious that this is overwhelming. What am I doing? Why do I have to do this? You see some really, some people are very, very emotional. They're crying. They're, you know, we try to make an experience where it's like, we hear you. I always tell people, if you're not nervous, I'm nervous. Like, but it's one of those things where you just have to kind of go through some things. And that's why we always say this is such a courageous journey. Yeah. Like you just climb up on that table with just so much, just feeling brave to do it. And then you can have all this intense and excessive and persistent nonstop worry and fear about whether it be surgery or maybe this is where it goes into that generalized anxiety disorder if you have it about just everyday situations. Because you can make yourself crazy. I mean, if you think about like something could go wrong on the OR table, well, something could have gone wrong when you were driving there. You could have gotten in an accident or your kids could have a serious issue that you get the call from the school nurse or what. Like, there's a million things that can derail even the most well thought out plans and preparations. And just like we were talking about the last time, these conversations we have in our head that we're going to say this and that, but they could drop something onto your lap or like, whoa, I have no rebuttal or it's not anything to say to that.
You planned.
Exactly. And I love this. Low probability events have a high probability of doing that. So, but what will that low probability event be? I don't know. And will it even happen? Hopefully not. Hopefully it'll be like, that was easy. Yeah. That was really, really easy. And sometimes anxiety really prevents you from leaning on those who know and love you to help you process those issues and how that will put this overwhelming burden on yourself rather than seeking the counsel from either a friend or family or a trusted person in your life, or from, like you said, a professional, like a therapist, or even from, and I think sometimes feeling like you can share your story, even being anonymous on a support group, for example. And I think that is why support groups are also, so critically important, because you can remain kind of hidden in your true identity. Your real friends and family aren't participating here, but it's a like-minded people who could maybe help you navigate that internal churn of your anxiety.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these things, it is usually easier to talk to somebody who you don't know. You know, it's like you think like, oh, this is going to be scary because it's a stranger. And it's like, no, it's actually kind of empowering that it's a stranger, or it takes that out because you're not worrying about then on top of your own anxiety and stress and all of that, you're really, then you're putting into like, okay, this is also a personal relationship. Like, no, it can just be this like separate, unrelated thing. You can kind of talk to that person about just this and then move on from it.
Exactly.
You're not worried about it cropping up in other areas of your life.
You're never going to meet them or what.
Or if it is a professional, like, yep, you just go in and that's what you guys do. And then you see them again and they're not your friend, they're not your partner, anything like that.
Yep, they're kind of this unbiased third party.
Exactly.
Just gives you a lens. Sometimes they'll agree with your perspective. Sometimes they'll challenge your thoughts and your interpretation of an experience that might be causing you anxiety, again, unnecessarily. And sometimes anxiety, I love this. It doesn't change your tomorrow. It controls your today.
Yeah.
It prevents you from being present, I think, is the biggest thing about anxiety. It can make you just feel so empty and like useless almost, and sometimes very, very dark and sometimes worthless. And that's when you really need to, I don't know, put it out there, maybe, and we're going to talk about this a lot on the next episode, Solitude, but maybe journal your feelings or spend time alone and really just reflect and relax and see what is it, like define what's making you so anxious.
And that also leads into where you see a lot of like comorbidity with depression, anxiety and depression. We know that those can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
From a clinical perspective.
Very much so. We just feel like we have broken thinking. Like we have absolutely no options. And I think sometimes like the stress we talked about last episode and anxiety, they can distort the way that we think, and they can really impact the way that we overall engage with others. And it can ruin relationships sometimes. And that can also give us anxiety that, oh my gosh, I had this relationship with this person, and ultimately by me thinking it was one way and just obsessing, I lost this whole thing. And then it's this fear of loss and this another layer of sadness.
You start to get anxiety about being anxious.
Exactly. So that's, something that we really need. There's just indisputable evidence that supports communities and knowing that you're kind of like not in this by yourself.
Yeah.
I think that that's anxiety promoting, and it gives a lot of great health benefits, actually. I saw this study that showed that being in a community or feeling like you're in this support group of, people who have been there, done that, or currently in that same struggle consistently is associated with less anxiety and depression and suicide rates, and even things like cardiovascular disease and cancer, believe it or not. Cancer, by having this persistent worry about getting cancer, can cause you to get cancer.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a crazy thought.
It is. It's so, and this is where, you hear a lot in the media and the news and all of this about mental health and physical health, and people always try to separate them, make them their own category. And it's like, mental health is physical health. You know, and it's such a shame that we don't have more access to mental health care, because then we look at what does this manifest into in our physical body.
There's no doubt about it. Everything is just linked together, our overall well-being. And it's just important that you recognize it, and it's not an isolated thing, and how that's just, like you said, overflowing into the rest of your health and your body and all of these things. And I think that, I think we're wired to be in this community, or this us. I think it's life-saving. I think that was the most detrimental aspect of COVID was obviously being in isolation, and it really shined a light on this whole mental health crisis that's happening, and how suicide rates increase and all that. And so I think that this journey towards better health, weight loss, bariatric surgery, all of those things, you need other people. So we have a support group. Join it. It's a support group. It's nothing else other than a place where you can share your thoughts and feelings and support other people. That's what we're trying to do. So we are going to talk a little bit about why anxiety is not necessarily, though, a bad thing.
Right.
We talked about overwhelming anxiety, feeling like you're just spiraling in a bad place. That's one thing. But we're going to talk about just the whole concept of anxiety in a different light here, and how it can help us to really get us going. It kind of keep us alert. It can make us aware of the risks. It motivates us to solve problems. And it's a problem if it's impacting our ability just to live a life. But otherwise, it's a good thing. It has a lot of great intentions, and it has a lot of things that can be what I would consider great upsides.
Yeah. I was like doing an eval with a psych professional. And so part of it is they evaluate you for like a couple different things, right? So one of them is anxiety. And I don't have like generalized anxiety, but I do find myself using the phrase, "Ooh, that makes me anxious," a lot.
Wow.
I told them, and I was like, maybe that's something to consider. Like, because like little things like I'll see like a kid skateboarding without a helmet or something. Like, that makes me a little anxious over here, or whatever it is in my life. But I think it can be then flipped into something. It's like, yeah, use that to motivate yourself to like, why does that make you anxious? And all the things we're going to talk about here.
All right, so let's talk about some of these upsides. So the first one that I've seen is it actually is associated with being smarter. Yeah, so you can have anxiety and it can actually make you more critical thinker. It can help you to be more meticulous in your research. It can help you to analyze situations. I'm thinking things like escape rooms. If you're anxious, I'm assuming you would just like ace your way through this whole thing because you're thinking of every possible scenario at any point about any situation. You're thinking about
the worst outcome. Yeah,
that's true. So you're like, all right, I'm going to escape from this room. And I was like born for this every day of my life. I've been training for this moment of this escape room. I've never done one though. Have you?
I haven't either.
Okay, let's do that.
We need to. My sister loves them, and I can see her being good at it.
Really? Is she anxious?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay, well, there we go. And I think that, it can just help you to explore consciously your problems and help you to get through it, and
that critical problem solving. And creative problem solving.
Creative, yes. Like emotional intelligence and all of those things. So it can make you just smarter in general. So that is not a bad thing. Well, thank goodness, because we're two super anxious babes, and that's why we're so darn smart.
There we go.
Okay, this is all good. All right, here we go. And it can help you to like really protect yourself. Like when things are, I don't know, a little bit dangerous or a little bit, like you really should be a little bit anxious about this because this person, this situation, this thing that's kind of gnawing away at you, make you feel anxious. It can be, maybe it should be. It deserves that kind of anxiety in your life.
Like I was just talking about, like with the, the skateboard or whatever. Yes. Like I'm going to go do something that is, I don't do a lot of like big dangerous things a lot, but if I'm in a situation where I'm like, oh, this is maybe not the safest, that kicks in and it makes you look at everything. Like it brings you like a heightened sense of awareness of your surroundings. And like, to me, it's like a safety thing. Totally. And thinking like as a woman too, it's like if you're out on the street at night, say you're, and it's dark outside, if I see a man, I am moving myself into a different space. Yeah. I'm crossing the road. I'm that person. I'm crossing the road. I don't care what you look like. Yeah. Like, I'm crossing the road or I'm going somewhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, I think back to the fight or flight, that's what it's innate in us to survive. Self-preservation. You needed that anxiety, that stress response to, being chased, bear coming at me. Yeah. Run. I'm not going to be like, I was so calm right now. I'm like just meditating and in my Zen vibes. Like, no, that's
I'm getting away from this bear.
Yeah. You're going to run like your life legit depends on it because it does. Now, it helps you to really stay focused on what you should. Sometimes I do think that we go down these rabbit holes of things that are easy and that we really shouldn't do. Like, I'll give you an example. Even with our podcast, I know that I have like tons of things that I need to like set up, like, let's say an electronic medical record questionnaire that like links with this, and it's going to be frustrating and I know it and I keep putting it off, but I'm like, oh, I need to work and I need to do a Doctor X Dietitian post. Yeah. Like I need to make like an infographic on Canva. Right. Because it's like kind of cool. And I'm like, there it goes. Oh, I got some likes. I'm getting that, like you said, the feedback. Yeah. Like this is all good. But
right. It's that low hanging fruit sometimes where it's like,
exactly.
Let me look at my task list for the day. Like, oh yeah, I can wipe down the counters rather than like deep cleaning the shower,
Exactly. Like, yeah, you got to get in there. And then, some people do great with a to-do list and that sort of thing. But on there, what needs your attention? Like, I need to not ignore this. Yeah. Like, I know that I'm anxious about the fact that I have to submit this credentialing packet to Cigna because I do.
Important.
It is super important, and it's going to impact it. And I can't just keep wasting time. Like, time's up. The day's over. Like, I've been working all day, and I could show that I did this, and this, like checking emails or texting people back. Yeah. Like, sometimes you need to just separate from that and just kind of like go deep into, okay, what is making me anxious that I have been putting off, and do those things. Do it. That is so that it just feels so good to temporarily distract yourself from anxiety in any way that you can.
But if you really kind of sit in it,
and
figure out what is causing me anxiety and what can I do to solve that problem.
Yeah, you have to address certain things. And I think that anxiety really does direct you to see what's too important to ignore. And you need to go there for sure. And also, I think anxiety lets you stay true to yourself and to what do you value? Like, what if something's making you anxious, you really care about it. Like, you hear all the time about relationships, and the relationship is done when it's like, I'm kind of like flatlined. I don't really care. I'm not crying. I'm not emotional. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I'm not oscillating at all. I'm just sort of like, bah.
What's that lyric? It's like the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference.
Ooh.
Like, if you hate somebody, that's still a feeling.
Yeah.
But like indifference, it's not causing that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of people that I always say I have a polarizing personality. You either really love me or you really hate me. And, but I don't think many people are indifferent to me. So that I think that's great. But I think that you need to look into yourself, and that's what anxiety helps you to do. Like you said, this kid on the bike, imagine if it's your own kid on a bike without a helmet, how much anxiety you would have, even though you're like, oh, that makes me anxious looking at this complete stranger like without a bike. Like why is this guy on a motorcycle going down the road at 100 miles an hour on the highway I-4 without a helmet? Oh, that makes me anxious. Like, oh my God, you're gonna wreck, stop, go. Yeah. But then if you think about it being like your good friend, right, or your husband or something, like, or me. Can you imagine me doing something so reckless? No, that would make you so anxious.
Who would I do my podcast with?
I don't know. I don't think the Doctor X Dietitian podcast would be the same without the doctor.
I don't think so.
I think it would be awful.
So no motorcycles for Dr. Dovec.
No, we're learning that big time. No way. So basically, if you try to eliminate anxiety, then you're also eliminating your self-awareness and who you are. So like what you value. So that's really, really important. And oh gosh, I'll tell you, I do think that anxiety has, for me, made me really push myself beyond even my potential of what I thought I could be. Yeah. And I see that in your career too. And we've known each other now for, I don't know, what has it been? Like
almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years?
Since we had like our interview.
Oh my gosh. Have we ever talked about that on the pod?
We have, about our connection.
Okay. I know. I always love to talk about how this interview, it was like such love at first sight. There was like other people on this call. I know we've gone there, but I just got to go there again in this moment of like tunnel vision to Hannah. I was like
Zoom.
It was a Zoom. So yeah, it wasn't even
I was in Chicago. Yeah.
It wasn't even like real body language or like the difference between being virtual or in person. It was just like, I was like, yeah, tell me more. And they're like, well, we have to wrap up. Be quiet. Yeah. I'm not done with this lady yet. I'm not done. Yeah. Well, we have other interviews. Cancel them. Yeah. Scrap them. It was just like, forget that. But I think, I'm sure, like, let's talk about anxiety. Were you anxious before that interview?
Oh, yeah. Always. That's the kind of situation that promotes anxiety. But again, I think it's a good thing because it caused me to think, I was in a different field, right? I was in dialysis at the time. And I had only really done bariatrics back in my internship. Mm. And so when they presented me with this opportunity of like, hey, we have this other position available, it's outpatient bariatrics. And I was like, all right, cool. But like, I had to really think about, oh my gosh, let me think back. Do I feel like I know enough? Do I feel like I can get into a different field? Do I feel like I can get into another specialty? Because it's not just general nutrition, right? It's something completely different. And it's not dialysis. It's completely different from that. Like there's so many differences, but it kind of made me have to sit and think. And I was like, I remember really enjoying bariatrics when I was in my internship and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely had that heightened of like, am I good enough? Am I worthy of doing this? Am I able to make this change in my career? Like, again, it's like that, I'm starting to like my heart like starts racing. You kind of get that like pit in your stomach of like, oh, am I good enough? And that too is like a symptom of anxiety, of like that feeling of inadequacy.
That
like
imposter
syndrome.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's so true. But having that feeling of anxiety to wanting to showcase your best stuff allows you to almost be an overachiever,
right,
of sorts. And it's been shown that it will help to just keep pushing you, like wanting more, like not being satisfied. The flip side of that coin, though, of course, is that you're not good enough. That that you're not valuable, you're not worthy, like all those things you just said. And I think that oftentimes we want to prove to people that I do deserve this seat at this table or whatnot. And I might have my own anxieties, but I'm going to overcompensate for that in the work and the effort that I do. And I think sometimes we then don't say no. And we don't, and we are people pleasers and
perfectionists.
And we're doing all of this, and it ends up, then we're like anxious and almost mad at ourselves because we don't really have time to have that like coffee date or that conversation that's really not going to help us. And I really just don't want to have it with this person, you know? And so I think we all need to work on saying no, staying true to ourselves. If that little nudge of anxiety, like, I don't really want to do it, then don't do it. You don't have to do it. You know, like let your anxiety motivate you. Let it to be to that extent, but not to the point of the negative pressure and all of that sort of thing.
And don't let it get to the point, you know, or try to acknowledge it where you're not able to celebrate in the moment when you do achieve something because you're always then thinking what's next. You know, it's that anxiety of like, well, it's done. So now what? It's like, okay, take a seat, take a sit, take a minute, whatever, and enjoy where you've gotten to.
We are going to have a whole episode on goal weight about that. And that's going to dive into this fantasy of what it feels like to accomplish that. And, you know, I think that, you know, anxiety can show you what you can achieve, like, but even when you're like under immense pressure, I mean, I'll tell you that there's rarely, but there are times in the operating room when, I get into some bleeding and all of a sudden it is very, I can't really even describe this moment, in the moment that you're just so like nothing else exists and how you're just like very calm. Like, even if you're like, you know, you're a little irritable that day. No. You're not like that at all. It's just like, I need, like a sponge, and you like put pressure, and then you like get control, and then you like get it to stop. And then afterwards you just start shaking like intensely, like, oh, but then, but during it, like, I don't know. I think maybe it's been my anxiety or whatever. I'm able to, knock on wood, I've been able to control every really challenging situation in the OR that is, I think some people would just freak and flail and panic. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but there's something that comes over me that I just almost feel like it's like this God-given thing that like, all right, we're having some situation here. Anesthesia, please be aware. And then like, I don't know.
It's like just thriving under pressure.
Yes.
I don't, and a lot of people are like that, and it goes along with other, you know, mental health concerns or things like that. Like ADHD is one of those examples of like, if you don't have enough to do, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so you need that like deadline, you need that pressure, and that with that comes that anxiety of, okay, I've got a deadline I need to meet, but like before that, there's no pressure.
I know. I mean, I think most people would procrastinate or someone that doesn't have any anxiety. Like sometimes you look at them and you're like, look at you. You're just like, I mean, just watch TV. Don't really care. Don't really, you know, like if I work, great. If I don't, you know.
Yeah.
I'm really, it's intriguing to me because I just don't feel that way. Like I have a different chip or makeup. But like I can't imagine, I don't know, not having like this.
Like the drive.
Yeah. And I think that anxiety will also give you energy to actually not just sit on the couch like, you know what, tonight I'm not going to binge on Netflix. I'm going to go and work on whatever,
Yeah.
a website, whatever, if it's going towards a goal of trying to complete a project or something pretty major that advances you professionally, maybe your personal life, maybe you need to get organized, sometimes doing your taxes, like our house has like forms and documents all over it right now. All those things I think, can just help you to like take action. Like I'm anxious about the fact that the deadline of the taxes is coming up. We must do this. And by the way, I don't do my taxes. My husband does, but I can feel the stress. The house is, the anxiety of him is like starting to boil. All of my little businesses and ideas he has to now try to wrangle up with the, with
I
the,
do not envy him doing your taxes.
No.
I don't do my taxes either.
No, we have an accountant, but it's a lot.
I married my accountant.
Oh, there you
Best
go.
thing I could do.
I mean, your husband is something else. He set us up with this podcast. He is like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. But it's that, do you feel like you're ever so anxious though? Like we were just talking about it, making you seek action and moving forward. But do you ever feel like you are so anxious about something that you are actually opposite? You're paralyzed.
Yes.
Like you just can't
100%.
even, you're in inertia.
You get to a point where there's no starting point. There's too many things. Everything seems high priority. And yeah, absolutely. And that's when it is you just can't get up and go.
I know. And I think, obviously tying it back, and we talk about this a lot about that motivation to look into bariatric surgery. And what are some of the things that might be making you anxious or preventing you from doing this? So I think one thing is money. You might think, I don't know if my insurance approves it. There's no way I'm going to look in the back of my card and call. Yeah. But a lot of programs actually allow free benefit verification. So just put your information in. They'll tell you if your insurance covers it or not, number one. Maybe some of you are worried about, okay, my insurance does cover it, but what's the copay, the estimated out-of-pocket expense, the deductible? How does this impact my finances? Or maybe you don't have coverage and you're worried about it being a self-pay situation. How much does it cost? Can I make payment plans? Can I finance it? Do they use... There's so many things there. And then there's also the, like you said, well, this is risky and like, I'm too afraid of the actual surgery. Will it hurt? Will it be... I've never undergone anesthesia. Will that be scary? I'm scared that I'll fail and it'll just be like everything else in my life. And that'll give me anxiety about the fact that I'm anxious about that. So it's just like all of these, like you said, feedback and all these things that can leave us paralyzed to really being able to move forward.
Right. And making changes is hard. I mean, inherently.
I think that's probably the hardest things that humans have is trying to make change, is like this inertia of the status quo that this is good enough. Yeah. You should be happy and content and satisfied. But you have that feeling like there's more out there.
It could be, yeah.
It could be more. I could be. And then it's almost like more. And then,
I was talking to a friend who does like online dating. And she was like, yeah, it's like you leave it for 2 days and all of a sudden you have like 300 people that have liked you. And then you realize like you can't talk to that many people. It's just not possible. And then B, what if there's something better? You start to talk to one person and then it's like maybe there's something better. And so it becomes that anxiety of always looking for like, what's the next best thing? What's the next best? Is there something else out there? And so that can be really paralyzing to just be like, I'm not even going to open the app. Like I don't even want to look at that because what if, what else is out there?
Oh, I know. Like again, make the wrong move, but you never know. You'll walk into a
decision.
You'll make a decision. You'll get married. Hopefully it's the right decision. If it's not, well, you made a decision. There we go. Yep. And we're going to go for that. And I think, I don't know, maybe others don't, but I feel like anxiety can help you with like balancing your life. Like, first of all, I'll tell you, I think it's a complete myth and garbage, this whole phenomenon of work-life balance. Like, because then you're always trying to achieve whatever this is from like whoever they are. And then you're never able to like hit this make-believe thing for maybe somebody else's life that like, I should be so content by working. Like I turn it on at 9, I turn it off at 5. Okay, that's the American amount of work I should do in a day. And then I flip it over to, I'm going to now be engaged with. no, stop that nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
I'll do a little work here. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I just worked like 18 hours today.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, I just slept 10 hours last. Like,
Yeah.
I feel
went
like
to Disney, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
I try to like really listen to my body, and sometimes they'd be like, you always work, or you always, do X, Y, or Z. But I just feel like if I feel like I need rest, I take it. If I feel like I need to move, I move. If I feel like I'm stressed, I will try to deal with it and find that balance in like every aspect of life, and like listen to, okay, I'm really anxious. I'm about to blow. I need to cry. I need to stop. I need to move away. Like, I think that that's really important, to listening to the anxiety as it kind of like waxes and wanes in your life.
But I think on the flip side of that is, a lot of people are working in that 9 to 5. They are, and they have to be in that, you have to be at work when you're at work and whatever. But remembering, like, you can have the work anxiety and you can leave that behind. Yes. Again, that email probably doesn't need to be responded to immediately.
I know.
So it's if you're in the situation where you can be flexible, you can kind of do your own thing. And I think, again, that is just something wrong with our culture. And that's
agreed.
like a bigger thing of like, we're expected to work in this very predictable, regular situation that may or may not work for you. I tend to start to do more creative projects at night.
Yes.
Because it's just what works better for me. And so I think that from looking at outside of like the normal 9 to 5 job, if you're doing other things, like look at what works for you and play into when do you feel best and when is that kind of guiding you.
Absolutely. I think there's no two ways about all of those things, and how we need to, have the confidence to say like, all right, this boss, this rigidness isn't working for me. Let me try to find something else that is, or make the best of it, and just, own your life and own your decisions and that sort of thing. So we talked about all the good things that anxiety in these kind of tolerable doses can do. But I did want to end with anxiety disorders. And that, again, we've touched on this. They're very, very real. They can be very crippling. And like we said, though, it can be evolutionary advantageous. So I want to talk about some things that you need to look out for that are, again, when it's overwhelming anxiety. If you feel like the news is just 24/7, if it's just harming you and making you spiral out of control, you need to really look into that. If you feel that your work week, the grind, it's harming your mental health, you're just like, I can't do this anymore, I'm about to break, that's another major thing. And then finally, I want to end with this, because we talk about this a lot, because this is how we advertise and we put it out there, and I can be a victim of this as well. Social media and its algorithms, and sometimes how it's designed to make us angry or distracted, feeling siloed, feeling inferior. It can be very, very harmful. It can really leave us feel like we're in social isolation. It can make us feel like there's a lot of other horrible negative things that can happen about it. And sometimes it's time to shut that out and maybe even seek additional help.
Yeah. I think if you're feeling like your anxiety is controlling you rather than you being able to kind of use it to your advantage, then I seek out help. Or again, even if you're like, I'm not really sure, is this something I need to be worried about? There's assessments. There's people that can help to guide you. Is this kind of normal anxiety? Is this everyday, run-of-the-mill, situational? You feel anxious because you see the dangerous situation. That might just be normal and evolutionary and protective of yourself. But if it is crippling, if it's overwhelming, you're paralyzed, nothing can get done,
Yeah, it's finding help. Find help, find that balance, and hopefully convert it into a good energy that can get you going to the positive side of things.
Yeah, so keep an eye out. We will have more information, as always, about this in our episode guides on Dr. X Dietitian. Make sure that you sign up, and so you get those to your email. And then, of course, you can always check us out on social media. Hopefully, we're not causing you anxiety on our social media, at Dr. X Dietitian on Instagram. And we look forward to finishing this out with Solitude on next
I
episode.
love this SOS series, and we are getting lots and lots and lots of great feedback. So keep your feedback coming.
Yes.
How you deal with anxiety, how you keep it from going to be overwhelming, how you deal with stress, and obviously any thoughts, feedbacks, concerns, questions. We love to hear from you.
Yes.
We love it when you message us, email us, contact us. So all of those things are great. And please subscribe to us as well, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.